What really obvious thing have you only just realized? That the phrase mint condition means like new because it's the condition coins leave the mint in. Cilantro and coriander are the same plant. One time I was at a restaurant with a friend, sharing salsa and chips. I commented that the salsa had a very strong cilantro flavor, and she commented she couldn't taste anything other than coriander. We debated the issue for a few minutes, in disbelief that the other person was tasting something completely different and couldn't pick up on the taste the other thought was prominent. When I saw coriander seeds at the store a few weeks later, I bought them to see what taste she had been talking about, and then the truth clicked. I only just today realized that the walk the plank on a boat is not a special edition pirates added to their ships as a means of public execution that looked like a little wooden diving board. It is, in fact, the very same plank as the gangplank you'd normally use to get on and off of the ship. It is not the presence of the plank that is threatening, but the absence of dock. The first time I visited the USA I was on my own and in NY and going to all the museums. I kept seeing signs that said no strollers and thought, because we call strollers prams in the UK, that you guys are super strict about the proper amount of attention required to visit a museum. I actually pretended to show more interest than I had in order not to be thought of as some deadbeat out for a casual stroll. It wasn't until about day 3 that I saw a no strollers sign that included a graphic for idiots. That when I was a kid and my dad would take me to the video store on Friday nights and he would go into the back room where only adults were allowed, that he was looking at porn. That calling someone simple is just a nice way of calling someone stupid. Wife informed me of this after 28 years of my grandma calling me simple. I kept seeing the same Chinese characters on restaurant signs and I always wanted to know what it meant. A week ago I found out. They mean restaurant. I realized at the age of 26 that narwhals are real because they were on an Octonauts episode. I walked into the room and was like, I thought they only do real animals on this show. Then the kid's dad said, "You're joking, right? I always thought you can't have your cake and eat it." Too was a weird saying because why wouldn't I be able to eat my freaking slice of cake? It's my cake. Nobody was telling me that I can't have my cake. Turns out they mean you can't eat the cake while also still retaining it. Once it is eaten, it is gone, an idiom I did not understand until this year. I am 27. This sounds ridiculous, but I recently found out about the term knee-jerk reaction. My whole life I had been saying it how I heard it, and just figured it was spelled something like knee-jerk reaction, like it was some psychology term. I learned a couple years ago that it's not the mayor of bad news, it's actually the bearer of bad news. I'm 25. I recently realized I was allergic to carrots. I just thought they made everyone's mouth numb. You know, just like almonds. I also learned recently that I have an almond allergy. My whole life I thought pay-per-view was actually pay-per-view because I had only ever heard people say it, and only recently saw it written out. English is not my first language, so I was mind blown when I realized how keys, kiss, he's, his, this, these, etc. differed in sound pronunciation. I first noticed this when I told my boyfriend I wanted a keys and he looked very confused. Now I try my best to pronounce them properly. My boyfriend did not know that his electric toothbrush has a timer on it that goes off at 1 minute and 2 minutes. He actually returned it and got a new one thinking it was broken. Since the timer is just a brief sort of pause, reduction in the vibration, he would be like, WTF, I literally just charged this thing thinking that the battery was already dying. One day, and I can't remember exactly what the conversation was, I brought up how I liked that my toothbrush let me know when I had brushed long enough. And it was like a light bulb went off in his head and suddenly he put it together that that was what his toothbrush was doing all along. That big ship's wheel I got to turn as a kid was not actually controlling the cruise ship. I realized that to be in one's birthday suit it means to be without clothes. I thought for the longest time it was a specific set of clothes you would wear on your birthday each year. I found out when I asked, what happens when you don't fit in your birthday suit anymore? Stretch marks happen. For the longest time, I always thought prima donna was prima donna. Principal Belding from Saved by the Bell is named Belding. I was 28 before I realized the meaning to the "why is 6 afraid of 7" joke. I always just thought it was dumb. 7, 8, 9. Like you're just counting. The electric bill wasn't paid until later in my life. It's because 7 was a registered 6 offender. Wow. Thanks for the silver. The reason the cord hook on the vacuum spins is so you can take the whole cord off at once instead of unraveling it one loop at a time, like I have been my whole life. I must have been around 11 to 12 years old, when I realized that in order of appearance during the end credits of a movie doesn't list the actors, actresses by who is the most good-looking. My bedroom door was broke and I finally got around to fixing it. Thought the knob was broke cause it was pushed in towards the door, so I pulled it out and realized that was how you locked the door. It called Men's Warehouse and not Men's Warehouse. It's been a couple years since I realized this and I just think that's a clever name. That parents have children write letters to Santa so they can figure out what to buy them for Christmas. I can't believe how I never put that together after 32 years on this earth. I just thought it was fun little tradition. This little piggy didn't go to the market to do any shopping. I used to always pour water into our coffee maker 1 glass at a time. It was such a pain in the ass, especially to fill the reservoir to the number of cups I wanted, until I realized I could just fill the carafe with water, which has the exact same measurements, and pour the water in that way. Not just now, but I think it applies. I'm currently in my mid-30s. I didn't realize until I was about 28 years old that my mom's name was Betty and her sister's name was Wilma. Betty and Wilma, from the Flintstones. And yes, they were definitely named after the cartoon. I asked. Flash forward 2 years later, my aunt Wilma informed me that they were fraternal twins. Again, another thing for 30 years I had not known. For a long time I thought to bust a nut meant that you were going to kick a guy in the balls or beat him up. So anytime I was getting worked up or angry talking about some guy, the first would say I'm going to bust his nut, not knowing the real meaning. Nobody ever said anything, but it was always followed by my friends laughing, so I assumed it was because I was being dramatic. Years go by and my coworker is telling me about some rude person he met and I said you should definitely bust that guy's nut. Suffice it to say I was extremely embarrassed and horrified when he explained it to me. Saw a place labeled as public house when I moved nearby recently. It was at that moment I realized, oh, that's why they call them pubs. It's short for public house. When I was little we had an Australian shepherd named Sydney. I didn't understand why her name was Sydney until 18 years later. That they put measurement stickers next to gas station doors so if a robber is running out of the store you can get a better estimate of their height. I always thought they were just there for something fun to do on road trip stops. More than that, they're not actually accurate if you stand against them and measure that way. They're supposed to be placed so the camera will show the correct height of the person, compensating for the angle of the camera. Super embarrassing, but in college I would order Roman Cokes because I heard everyone else ordering the same. Turns out I misheard everyone and found out it was just rum and Coke. Not me, but my sister asked me about 2.5 months ago when we were watching John Wick 3 during the desert scene. She asked me if they were real and I asked if what were real and she said sand lands and I busted out laughing so goddamn hard and said, you mean deserts? Yes, they're real. Thinking about it right now got me laughing. I thought astigmatism was astigmatism, so I thought you could have 2 stigmatisms. Today my friend realized pipe cleaners were originally for cleaning pipes. After I suggested using one to clean a metal straw because it's similar to a pipe. Oh, I had that one about 7 years ago when my stoner ass was trying to clean out a glass pipe. Man, this is so stupid. Someone should invent some sort of pipe cleaner. Oh. This girl I know has a dog named Dog. 2 years into knowing her and being around Dog, I was having a conversation with her sister-in-law and I said I love the name Dog. Her sister-in-law responds, Dog, and I said yeah, it's a neat name. She started laughing and said no, Dog, the way you spell dog. I'm still mind blown about this. I learned that allspice is actually one spice and not a blend of spices containing cinnamon and nutmeg. Up until last year I thought Nat Geo was a person. I then realized it was short for National Geographic. My mom used to make my sisters and I belly buttons for dinner. I was 27 when I realized that they were actually tortellini. But she knew we were dumb kids and would refuse something named so strange even though they were delicious. I think I would have been more freaked out about eating cooked belly buttons. Personal injury lawyer commercials play more frequently during daytime TV because the clientele is injured, stuck at home, and watching daytime TV. Cruella de Vil was a cruel devil. The word for explorer in Spanish is exploradora. Dora the Explorer is a Spanish play on words. When I was a kid, my mom told me my rabbit Rosie went to live on a farm. In my early 20s I saw an episode of The Sopranos where everyone makes fun of Tony when he realizes his dog didn't really go to live on a farm. That's when I realized Rosie had not gone to a farm either. If it makes you feel any better, I lived on a farm as a kid and took in 2 rabbits. One of my mom's friends was sick of her kids having rabbits. So I got them. They lived a good life. I used to bring them all of the butt ends of any vegetables my mom chopped up, and I gave them a lot of ice cubes in the summer. They didn't like to be petted, but they seemed to like it when I read to them. The houses in Bikini Bottom are car mufflers. Pufferfish suck in water, not air. When teenagers said we're going to TP a house, I always thought it was TP, and it never made sense to me since they just covered a house with toilet paper. I recently realized that TP was the initials for toilet paper. I'm 27. Today the radio taught me Mariah Carey wrote and sang All I Want for Christmas Is You. All this time I thought it was just a cover that she did so well. People loved it more than the original. Turns out it is the original. The song It's Getting Hot in Here isn't actually talking about here temperature. I felt very, very stupid. Nelly was a groundbreaking climate activist. Phineas and Ferb are shaped like a P and an F. I regret to inform you all that it just occurred to me the other day that the game is called Sims because they're in a simulation. I'm 26. In Pokemon, there is same type attack bonus, where if you use a move that is the same type as the Pokemon itself, then the move does 1.5x damage. People also refer to it as stab damage, which I thought was just a colloquial term for 1.5x damage. I only just realized that stab stands for same type attack bonus. Undergarments and socks are there to cover places that sweat and stink so that you don't sweat and stink on the thing on top of the undergarment and can replace the undergarment more often. Except for men's undershirts, which exists so nobody has to see my man boobs when I wear a white dress shirt. That ponies aren't baby horses. I'm 35. Alucard from Castlevania is Dracula backwards. In the movie Cats vs. Dogs, when the dog goes son of my mom, he's actually saying son of a bitch. That the Houston Astros name comes from astronauts. And the Baltimore Ravens are because Edgar Allan Poe lived and is buried in Baltimore. That people who always seem to know what direction it is north, south, east, west aren't somehow magical magnets but are rather just noticing where the goddamn sun is in the sky. Why did no one tell me? The sun is a huge indicator, but I know plenty of people who keep track of direction without the sun without even thinking about it. I am not one of them.